I mean, a huge number of those writers that became icons in their own right. Ngugi wa Thiong'o was a student in Makerere who showed up in Achebe's hotel room with a manuscript, and that became With No Child. You know, Achebe was the magnet for African writers. He built that. And one very interesting thing is that after the war, he insisted, you know, by that time he was a star, you know. By 1971 he published, you know, Things Fall Apart, No Longer at Ease, A Man of the People, who everybody claims now that, you know, sort of forecast the coup. A Man of the People, you know, lampooned the First Republic. Sorry. Well, all kinds of people say all kinds of things, and Achebe will say that he didn't. But there was a coup in that novel, and it came out.
Well, it was reality at the end of the day.
Honestly, because I think telling the story in your own way and so many other things you've come to call Achebian way of writing, which is very good. I'm just looking at a quote from him. Let no one be fooled by the fact that we may write in English, for we intend to do unheard of things with it. Is great, because now if you're talking about writing in English, and sometimes when you read some of his works, even if you don't understand his own mother tongue, you know, there's this familiarity with your own mother tongue that you feel some kind of direct translation of what exactly he meant to convey, and people actually like that. It was so simple to the extent that even those whose should I say, whose second language or third language is English, understood the story of what Achebe tries to put out in his writings.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I agree. I mean, basically, a whole lot of people have said things like Things Fall Apart was the first Igbo novel written in English. I mean, I've seen, you know, but I'm trying to take us away from the writing and in terms of institution building, because a lot of us, you know, whether we're chemists or geologists or engineers, might think that we're so terrific in those things and that we do our work and that we've contributed, you know. But he, in terms of building institutions, I was trying to talk about his insistence after the war that his books have to be published first by a Nigerian publisher, and if any foreign publisher, you know, he was a star, so he says something like, if Heinemann wants to publish me now, and that Heinemann, you know, which sort of built him up, if Heinemann wants to publish me now, they've got to take their rights from Nwamife Publishing, which was based in Enugu. You know, I mean, that's a way of building indigenous capacity. You know, all that local content we're talking about now. You know, in the 60s, you know, the thriving literary scene had basically ensured that, you know, publishers from Europe, you know, looked in, you know, to see what, you know, was being published locally. But then that idea had died down after Mbari itself collapsed, the Mbari Arts in Ibadan. So Achebe was insisting on that. Oh, of course, you and I know that the indigenous publishing that we deserve as 167 million English-speaking people, that we don't have it. But, you know, there was an effort by people like Achebe. That's one. The second thing is that he founded, you know, he reconvened the writer's body, which is ANA. You know, he invited writers to his place in 1983 to reconvene, and that's how we have a writer's body today. Now, there are all kinds of very distinguished writers who have very strong voices, who like to do things alone. He was building institutions. The whole concept of getting these writers to be published, you know, under African Writers Series was to say, well, let us build a collection of African stories that the world will read. A whole lot of us read all those things, you know, whether they are Things Fall Apart, whether they are a whole lot of those Cyprian novels that were published under the African Writers Series. Kenneth Kaunda published under the African Writers Series. Apart from Wathiongo, there are quite a number of other East African, you know, writers who published under that, and it was him. So this championing of institutions. This whole idea that we can create an economy of culture. You know, even today when you hear hip hop artists talk, they say that they are making money, but they are not corporatized. You know, that there's a whole lot of structure. Achebe had been looking for that structure since the 60s.
What about, you know, I mean, I remember the African Writers Series. You remember picking up a book and then you open the front page and you're ticking off which ones you've read and which ones are left for you to read. But, you know, building institutions is fine. The African Writers Series, we should ask, is this still existent? Do you think that there will be a renaissance with maybe his passing?
Thank you very much. I wish there would be. We're just not like that. You know, I mean, and this is a way of explaining to you. There was one day that I think it was Oshundare who won the Commonwealth Prize, and I went to Glendora to find out if they had a copy of his books. You know, I went to other bookshops, and you know, it didn't kind of tie in to, I mean, sorry, not to ask whether they had copies, whether his books were flying off the shelf. You know, we're not like that. You know, that's the thing. That's the unfortunate thing.
The question is why? Why are we not like that?
Why are we not like that? Well, I guess, you know, we have to consciously build it. I mean, when you win an award, you know, in England, you know, or in America, it turns I mean, you automatically become a bestseller. I mean, your work becomes, if the award is prestigious. But in Nigeria, no matter how prestigious the award, you know, organizers have to make a conscious effort, you know, to ensure that, you know, you don't become a non-entity immediately after the award night. So that's what, I don't know. You know,
there have been many attempts, sorry, Sulaiman, there have been many attempts to, I mean, we've complained about our reading culture and how it's dying. Some people say it's because, you know, we hardly can put food on the table, so why would we worry about books? Libraries books are being stolen in the library. And there is an attempt, I mean, in recent times we've seen an attempt to bring back the book. Different governments or governments at different levels have decided to use this as an initiative. How would you appraise the success of this initiative?
Of course, you know that it hasn't worked, but it is not just a government thing. I mean, we're just talking about why are we like that. I mean, I think it's a collective problem. If government even pretends that is doing something, sets up some kind of agenda, even if it is to win elections. If I knew that Jonathan just wanted to win elections, that was the whole point of bringing everybody together in 2010 to say that it was bringing back the books. But, you know, we should have...
That's debatable. I mean, because he's not the only one who's done that.
Well, but at least, in fact, you know, as a form of gesture, you can at least say that, you know, that's a president saying bring back the book, I mean, say something significant. You and I as writers or librarians or publishers, we should seize on that and try and start to engage with public organizations who are meant, I mean, there are civil servants. There's some man called the chairman of the National Library Commission, I'm sure. Do we know him? There's some fellow being paid as maybe director of educational research institute or something. I'm sure there are people paid as, you know, permanent secretaries in the Ministry of Education. Are we engaging those people? Are we making them do their work?
Ever since that time,
yes,
where that meeting had in 2010 about bringing back the book,
yes,
has anything happened? Any other meeting?
No, there are what you might call set pieces. What my friend, the footballer, you know, when we hadn't started to win properly at AFCON, Olise said we should go beyond set pieces. You know, start the staged things, staged events, and try and win the matches through. So those things are set pieces are the president shows up somewhere, reads some book. What people do elsewhere in the world on a day-to-day basis is that they then engage with the public officials in those places to ensure that you don't leave them to themselves. Those guys are not going to do any work.
Okay, now let's go back to Chinua Achebe. We also know that as well as being a writer, he was also a strong critic. He did a critique of Western literature. He also was a